Hi, this is Craig Ballantyne, author of The Perfect Day Formula, and I'm here to help you get more done, make more money, and still get home on time for dinner. Now, in today's video, I'm going to teach you the 5 rules that you need to put into your life to have more success and less stress. Now, before we get started, I need you to think about that number one thing that is keeping you up at night, that number one thing that's causing you anxiety in the pit of your stomach, and the pains and pinches that are stopping you from having a good night's sleep and focusing on what really matters. Because these 5 rules are actually going to help you overcome that. And when you put these in place, you'll have more structure in your life so that you have more true freedom. Now, I know that everybody deals with stress and anxiety because I once dealt with stress and anxiety so bad that it sent me to the hospital twice in a 6-week period. It was back in 2006. I just turned 30 years old. And here I was going to the hospital because of this stress and anxiety. And the reason that I had it was because of something that I called the paradox of freedom. See, back in 2006, my online fitness business, Turbulence Training, was going really, really well. In fact, it was going so well that I was able to quit my job as a personal trainer. And now I had all the time in the world to do whatever I wanted. I could work all the time, and then I could go out really late at night, chasing girls, drinking too much alcohol, and then drinking too much caffeine the next day. And because of that, I had too much freedom, like I said, and that caused the stress and anxiety. Now, we see this all the time. You see rock stars and movie stars like Johnny Depp with all this money and no one around them saying no. And they have too much freedom. And what do? They end up wasting their life. They end up in a lot of trouble, and sometimes they ended up dying early. You also see this with the rich kids of Instagram, and they're wrapping a car around a tree at 3 o'clock in the morning because there's no one there saying no. Mike Tyson, he made $300 million, but he was surrounded by yes men and not anyone who would say, no, Mike, you can't do that. And the next thing you know, he's bankrupt. So the paradox of freedom, it can get us all. We all think that we want to have that full freedom, but we actually need more structure in our lives. So for me, back in 2006, one morning in March, I woke up with a sense of impending doom. It was after another long weekend of going out really late. And on that Monday morning, I just didn't feel right, and it got worse over the course of the day. And for the next 6 weeks, I had symptoms of a heart attack, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I could only sleep from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m., and then I'd wake up with a tight chest, tingles from the top of my head down to the end of my fingertips. Elevated heart rate. I just thought I was having a heart attack. And so I went to the hospital twice and actually said that. Again, I'm 30 years old, and I walked into the hospital and I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. And they took me right to the back. It was not a pleasant experience. In fact, it was the lowest point of my life. But I tried everything to overcome it. I did meditation, qigong, yoga. I tried all of these things. I even went and bought a dog because I read that petting a dog helps you decrease your anxiety. And so I went and bought this amazing chocolate lab puppy from this farm outside of the big city of Toronto, and I brought him back. And then I tried to walk him around the block, and he was really stubborn, and he just sat there. And then I tried to go play fetch with him, but he wouldn't chase the ball. And every time I left him in my apartment, my tiny little apartment in Toronto, my neighbors would write these nasty notes on the door because the dog would bark because of the separation anxiety. And I realized that I bought the dog version of me. And so this anxiety got worse for a little bit, but eventually, because I tried all of those things, I was able to overcome it. And so I realized I needed more structure in my life. All of this freedom was actually killing me. And so that's when I decided to put the rules into place that I'm about to teach you next. Now, I know what you're thinking. Craig, I don't want any more rules. I've already got rules from my boss or from my family or, rules of society. I don't want more rules. Well, here's the thing. When rules are imposed upon us by other people, we resist, we rebel. But if the rules are brought on by ourselves, if we give ourselves our own rules, we actually make ourselves more efficient and effective. Think of it this way. It's like having an operating system. Just like your iPhone and your laptops have operating systems that make them work and make them do amazing things, we all have operating systems. We all operate by rules right now. You just never thought to write them out. And so that's what we're going to help you with today. If you don't think that rules are going to be beneficial to you, allow a famous author to say it better than what I'm saying right now. So we'll go to the guy who wrote The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, and he says, discipline and freedom are not mutually exclusive, but mutually dependent, because without discipline, we would sink into chaos. Man, that's a great quote. And now think about how that relates to our regular lives. Think about driving around your town. What do you do when you come to a red light? You stop. Or a stop sign. You stop. Now imagine there were no traffic signs. There were no red lights. And everybody was just going. It'd be chaos, right? You'd never get to where you wanted to get to safely and effectively. But with the rules of the road in place, we're able to get to our destinations and enjoy the freedom at the end of the road. That's what it's all about. One more example, in case that's still not enough for you. So imagine two people that want to lose 10 pounds. They're both taking their kids to a birthday party. One of them is on the paleo diet. They have rules for their nutrition. The other person relies on willpower alone. Now, here they come into the party. The cake is offered to them. The paleo dieter says, no, I don't eat sugar or wheat, so I can't eat the birthday cake. Thank you, but I'm on the paleo diet. No problem. No stress, no willpower. Easy, because they have rules. Now, the person who's just going to rely on willpower, they'll say, no, I'm trying to lose weight. No, thanks. Cake looks good, though. A couple minutes later, they get it shoved in their face again. You know what it's like. You always get the cake shoved in your face when you don't want it. No, okay, I'll just have one bite. And that one bite turns into two pieces, and they go home with guilt and shame. But if they had rules in place, an operating system, they would have avoided that. So it helps us rely less on willpower and more on automatic actions through our powerful habits. That is what rules for your life are all about. So let's go through the 5 rules that you're going to put in place. Now, my rules are my rules and yours are yours. You're not going to do what I do in my life, and I'm not going to do what's in your life, because that's not right for me. And you doing what I do is not right for you. So that's why these are templates and allow you to build your own. All right, so now we're going to start with rule number 1. And this is what I call the boring rule. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, and you're going to want to reject it, but trust me, it's going to have a huge impact on your life. So rule number 1 is that you should have a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake-up time, 7 days a week. Yes, every single day of the week. Now, I resisted this for 7 years. My mentor, Mark Ford, who started Early to Rise, would write about this all the time. He talked about getting up early and getting to bed on time. And I said, no, I want this life of freedom. And you know what happened because of that? I had anxiety. And so when I finally took his advice and I started going to bed and getting up at the same time 7 days a week, it had the greatest impact on my all-day energy out of anything that I had ever done. It was better than eating right. It was better than exercise. It had the greatest impact. I was no longer tired at 2 o'clock. I was no longer dragging my butt on Monday morning because I slept in on Sunday and couldn't fall asleep on Sunday night. It was really important and really powerful. And so I know you want to resist this, but don't. So the next time you have a slow social schedule where you don't have a whole lot going on the weekend, for about 2 weeks, make sure that you do this. Try it out, and you'll be amazed. You'll go, wow, this makes me feel fantastic. Now, of course, we are all going to have celebrations, work events that keep us out a little bit later than normal. But here's the thing, don't sleep in. When you sleep in, it ruins your schedule for a couple of days. So you might have to take a nap or go to bed early the next night, but don't sacrifice that wake-up time. So that's it. That's rule number 1. You think it's boring, you think it's small, but it's not. It is really going to help you out, because when you have more energy, when you're able to attack the day in the morning, you're going to get so much more done, and you're going to have more true freedom in your life. Now, let's go to rule number 2. Rule number 2 is that you are going to focus on your number 1 priority first thing in the morning for 15 minutes. Not for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, but just 15 minutes. That's all I want you to give me. I'm not asking you to get up at 5 a.m., and I think this 5 a.m. club is kind of silly, because not everyone should be getting up at 5 a.m., especially if you don't get to bed until midnight. that's not right for you. But everybody can get up 15 minutes early. And when you have 15 minutes in the morning before anybody else is up and no distractions, you'll go down to your kitchen table, you'll sit there with pen and paper, no electronics, and you'll work on your number one priority in life. Your number one problem to solve, or your number one opportunity to take advantage of. So it's going to be up to you to choose that number one priority, and I'll tell you how to do that in a second. But if you do 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week, that's 72 hours in a year of clear thinking. Now imagine what progress you can make on a problem in your life in 72 hours of clear thinking. Most people, because they're so reactive, don't even have 5 minutes of clear thinking a day. But all you have to do is get up 15 minutes earlier than normal. So if you get up at 8 o'clock now, get up at 7:45, go down the kitchen table and think. And that is going to be a big breakthrough for you. So again, you don't have to get up super early. You can be a night owl and this is still going to work for you. Because when you can think without distractions, that's when you make progress. So let's talk about how you figure out what the heck your number one priority in life is. Well, we go to my friend Luciano Del Monte for the answer. He's a pastor up in Canada, and he taught me about the 4 seasons of life. And I loved this analogy. So Luciano said to me, Craig, we're all in a season of life. We're either in a season of health, of wealth, of social self, or of family. So let's walk you through each one of those seasons to figure out how you can choose your number one priority. So if you're in a season of health, this might be because you're a 55-year-old man or woman who's raised a family, the kids are out of the house, you've spent a lot of time in your career, you've really sacrificed. But over that sacrifice, you've gained a little bit of weight, and now you're pre-diabetic. So this is your number one priority in life, to overcome this health hurdle. And so for those 15 minutes in the morning, you might sit down and plan out your nutrition. You might study nutrition. You might even plan out an exercise program, and you can actually do the exercise in that time. You don't have to sit there at the kitchen table if health is your number one priority and you need to move around. But if you get up and focus on that first thing in the morning, the world's not going to get in the way and you're going to be consistent. Now, another season of life is wealth building. So this might be for our young man or woman just engaged to the love of their life. They know that in a couple years from now, they're going to have a little kid, they're going to need a house, they're going to need some money. And so now is their season of wealth building. And so they're going to get up and focus on how the heck can I make some money here? Or how can I get out of debt? So imagine if you had $3,000 worth of credit card debt and you went down to your kitchen table every day and you thought, how can I increase my income? How can I reduce my expenses? How can I find a credit card that has a lower interest rate? Now, you can't tell me that if you focused 15 minutes a day on this number one priority, 6 days a week, that you wouldn't get out of debt faster than if you did nothing. Of course you would. This is going to work great. But it's also going to allow you to identify opportunities to make more money and build that wealth. So that's the season of wealth building. And if that's where you are, make wealth building your number one priority. Now, don't give up on health and don't give up on family, but make sure that you're spending that important time in the morning working on that. Now, you might be in a season of family. So fast forward a couple years, and that young person is now married, and they do have their child. Well, some of the other things are going to have to go to the side, because when you have a child, that is the number one thing in your life. And so they're going to get up and take care of their family. Maybe you're taking care of a parent, and that is the season of family that you're in, that you are not taking care of your child, but you're returning the favor to your parents and making sure that they're okay. So maybe you spend time figuring out their problems first thing in the morning. And then there's the season of personal enrichment. Now, it's not about getting rich, this one. It's about giving back. So my mother, she is in this season of personal enrichment right now. And so what she does is she gets up every day and starts her day by focusing on the charities and community projects that she's involved in. She makes sure everything is organized and makes sure that all the people are going to the activities to volunteer. And so you can give back in your season of enrichment if that is where you are in life. So now that you know what season of life you're in and what priority you should be working on, all I need from you is 15 minutes in the morning. So that is rule number 2. Now, rule number 3, this is where we build a foundational health rule that supports everything else in all of your healthy behaviors. So think of it like this. If there's one thing, one big health change that you can make that's really going to impact a lot of your life, this is where you make it a rule for you. So one time I was interviewed by a guy from Australia, and he said to me, and I loved this story, he said, Craig, if I get 3 ocean swims per week of 20 minutes, everything else falls into place. I have less stress, it reminds me to eat better, so all I need to do is have those 3 swims. Now that's a great rule. You might, on the other hand, choose a nutrition rule. You might say, I'm going to follow the paleo diet, and that's going to keep you out of trouble, as we saw before in that story. Or you might have a rule that says, I meditate for 20 minutes a day first thing in the morning. And as long as I meditate, it keeps me on track with my nutrition, and it reduces my stress, and it makes me a healthier person. So I know that the temptation is to have like 19 different health changes in your life. But we don't need to do that. Let's just focus on one major one right now that is really going to have an impact. And make that your number 1 health rule. So we've gone through 3 rules so far. Now we're into our 4th rule. And this one is making sure that you have time and focus on your number 1 wealth building activity every day. So there's something that we all can do to build our wealth and get richer a little bit more every day. If you're a salesperson, it might mean making at least 1 sales call per day, or generating 10 leads, or going out on the road and having a sales call. And you must make sure that you have that in your daily plan. There's a rule. I make a sales call every day. That might be yours. For me, as a writer, I have to write for at least 60 minutes first thing in the morning. That is my wealth building rule. For somebody else who might be a manager, it might mean scheduling in meetings with their most important team members to talk about the projects that keep everybody working in the business towards the major goal. So you need to identify, what's my number 1 wealth building activity? If you're an investor, maybe it means sitting down and reading a financial report. Or you're a real estate investor, it might mean visiting a new house every day to check it out. Whatever it is, make it a rule so that you get richer every day by doing this one activity. So that is rule number 4. Now, rule number 5, this one might be the most important of them all. And it's where you actually don't do anything. It is your not to do rule. So we all have one thing that can throw us off track. I mean, we can be good 6.5 days a week, but then we can make one bad decision because of one vice or bad habit that we have that can ruin a lot of our progress. Let's take a look at this on an extreme example. So imagine you know someone who's a recovering alcoholic. Well, that recovering alcoholic can drink water every day. They can go to their meetings. They can say the Serenity Prayer. But if one of their friends sends them an invitation to join them at happy hour and they go, it's going to ruin everything. They're going to start drinking, and the next thing you know, 3 days later, they're just coming off a bender and they're back struggling with alcohol. So in our own lives, hopefully we don't have something that bad. But it might be a temptation to check email all the time. Or it might be that we eat chocolate cake every night and we're trying to lose 10 pounds. So we have to identify what is that number 1 vice, number 1 bad habit that we need to protect ourselves from. And then what I want you to mentally think about is building a fence around you from the bad habit. So how can we keep that bad habit on the outside? So for me, I'll tell you my personal story. My bad habit was, and still kind of is, email. I have to work really hard, just like you, not to check my email all the time. Because I know that if I check email first thing in the morning, it causes anxiety and stress. And back when I had my anxiety attacks back in 2006, that was the first thing I was doing every morning. I was checking my email. Well, I was waking up late and then checking my email. And because of that, I felt like I was chasing the world. I was always behind the 8 ball. And that caused me anxiety, as it does for you too. When you're really, really busy and you have so much to do, and you get those emails coming in giving you more and more stuff to do, it can be really, really stressful. And so I realized one morning, I woke up at 7:30, I checked my phone in bed, checked my email. One email sent me off on down this rabbit hole of bad ideas and bad thoughts because it was a negative email. And I said, no, this can't happen anymore. Tomorrow, I'm not going to check my email until 7:35. That's right, I just did 5 minutes at a time. The day after that was 7:40, 7:45, 7:50, and away we went until finally it was 9 o'clock, then 10 o'clock, then 11 o'clock. And I was getting so much work done. And nothing in my email was an emergency, so I didn't need to see them. And so I was able to have greater productivity and less stress because I built this rule that says I don't check my email until whatever time I wanted to do it. And I had to fight really hard for some of those minutes to make it to that deadline, but it really, really worked. So let's think, what should be your not to do rule? If you're a person who went from having 1 glass of wine with dinner to 3 or 4 glasses of wine with dinner, and now you're waking up every day groggy and not thinking well and taking it until 11 o'clock to really get dialed in at work, well, maybe you should have a rule that says, I don't drink from Sunday night to Friday night. And if you have that, you can still enjoy some wine on the weekend or some drinks with friends. But during the work week, if you want to wake up fresh and attack the day, you have a rule that says, I don't drink during the work week. And you can take that rule when you go out to your social events and say, no, I just don't drink during the work week. And people will back off. That's what the power of these rules allow. They allow you to overcome peer pressure. People will back off when they know that you're on the paleo diet. They'll be like, whoa, paleo dieter, I can't bother you, right? And so you will have these rules in place. You will have that I don't drink during the work week rule, and people will back off. And you'll stay on track, and you'll have more success. Why? More structure in your life. I hope you see the value of this. Because that structure, what does it give you? True freedom. It gives you true freedom. Because I realized back in 2006 that I was actually more successful when I had a full-time job and I was doing my online business on the side because I was so structured. I had to be at my first training client at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had to train until 11. Then I had a few hours where I had to really get a whole lot done. I had no time to waste. And then I had to work again in the training studio from 3 until 7. There's no room for error in that system. But that structure actually gave me freedom. It allowed me to then quit the job and go on to help more and more people, to have a bigger impact on the world. And so whatever the goals are in your life, having more structure is going to give you true freedom and allow you to reach those goals. So put that structure in place. Have those 5 rules for your life. Remember, the 5 rules are that consistent bedtime and wake-up time, that rule for focusing on your number 1 priority for 15 minutes in the morning, your number 1 health rule that sets the foundation, your number 1 wealth building activity, and then, most importantly, your not to do rule that keeps you out of temptation. Have those in place and you'll have more success. Now, if you like that, what I want you to do is go and read more of my systems for success in a free book that I'm going to send to you at freeperfectdaybook.com. That's right, I'm going to send you a free copy of my book, and you can go through and learn more about the rules for your life, the 5 pillars of success, and how to create a perfect vision for your perfect life that will help you achieve your big goals and dreams. Again, that's freeperfectdaybook.com, and I'll ship you a free book, and you're going to make big changes in your life by having more structure so that you get the true freedom you desire and you deserve.